Welcome to MVM. This is our review of Vindication from Orange Nebula Games. This game is nothing like what we expected originally. It looks in many ways like a huge Ameritrash style game, but really at its heart, it is a Euro cube pusher.
Yeah, so this is actually their very first game they've ever made. And it's fantastic. This is a game where you're going to be, well, let me give you the theme first. The idea is that you have landed on this island and each of us is a scumbag,
yes,
so to speak.
A wretched scumbag, as they say.
We are a wretched scumbag, and our whole idea in the game is that we have to try to become vindicated. And to become vindicated, you want to do a lot of different things on the island by hiring companions, going and attacking monsters, getting traits, getting skills, and leveling up your character in order to gain victory points within the game. All that's done through 6 different attributes that are on the board itself. There's 3 basic attributes, and then there's 3 rare attributes that you can kind of craft through the course of the game in order to try to gain some of the different cards that are around the outside. Each of these different stacks of cards has about 20 different cards in them. So there's a variety of different things that you can do within the game.
Yeah, the card variability here is incredible. As you go through these cards, you won't believe one card to the next. All of this is powered by this central part of the board where we're going to be exploring the island. So at the beginning of the game, as we have set up right here, there's just a few tiles out next to the player starting locations. And then as you move around the board, you're going to be adding locations. And like Jeremy said, a lot of these locations are going to be where you need to go in order to interact with these various card locations.
One of the cool things about the game is that each of us is going to start with some of these influence cubes, so to speak. And they're going to start in the center of our player board. Now, the whole idea in the game is that you're trying to move this influence from the different locations back and forth. So if you've played games like Terra Mystica or Gaia Project, what you're doing is you're moving them from your potential energy into your actual influence. This influence is what you're going to be able to go out into the board and grab attributes, grab locations in order to score points. And to do that, you have to actually have conviction. So you have to move them from your influence over to your conviction. So it's this constant flow back and forth of trying to get the right influence at the right time in order to enact different parts upon the board.
Yeah, the influence is definitely the main economy, but like Jeremy said, the conviction is something you're going to use to do a few extra little things to really make the game a little bit more interesting. But by the end of the game, the hope is that you'll have at least seen all of your potential moved over to influence or elsewhere so that you can become vindicated.
Everyone at the start of the game is going to start off with a secret quest that they're trying to fulfill. At the start, you're going to be given 2 of those, and you're going to know your starting position. You're going to kind of make an idea at that point what I'm trying to complete. There's a variety of different secret quests that could be gaining an X number of attributes, an X number of companions in the game. All of them are going to give you victory points at the end of the game. One of the very unique things about this game, one of the things I really like before we even get into our review, is that the game end is actually triggered by cards, and you don't know how the game is going to end. Most of these games that you play that are Ameritrash or Euro-style games, they're done by an X number of rounds or killing the other players or killing an X number of players. At the start of the game, you're going to have 2 of these game end trigger cards that are face up. Everyone knows how the game could possibly end. But as players gain points through the course of the game, you unlock more of these game end triggers. So the game could literally end at any given time, depending upon what players are doing at that point in the game.
Yeah, it's really cool because in addition to these first 2, like we said, as you move around the score track, at various distinct times, you're going to add another game end trigger. You can have as many as, 4, 5, 6, maybe 6 or more game end triggers, and at any time one of these could flip, and a lot of these you'll find synergize very much with our side quests or the goals that we're trying to use in order to score points. So you might flip one and someone may have achieved it already. That's going to end the game and you have one more round to finish things up.
Now, we don't want to get too much into how to play the game. We want to get more into our review, but I want to give you just an overview of what you're doing within the game. So on your turn, you have 3 basic actions that you're doing. Each of us is going to start at a very random spot around the outside perimeter of the island. On your turn, you're moving locations. Now, each of us is going to have an X movement value depending upon whatever mount that we have. To start off the game, each of us is walking. Through the course of the game, you can expend some of your resources or attributes to visit the stable to enhance your movement speed from 2 all the way up to 5, gaining victory points for those mounts as you go. When you move, you're going to reveal new locations on the board depending upon where you move to. If a tile is already in a location, you're not obviously going to reveal that tile is set. Once you land in a particular spot, you get to visit one of those adjacent spots. Now, players never move on the actual tiles themselves. They're always moving in these triangle locations that are around the hexes. When you land in a spot, you get to activate or visit, one of the two spot or three spots even that are surrounding that area. All of these spots do a variety of different things, from adding more attributes around the board to allowing you to manipulate some of your influence, to doing a variety of different things to collect cards around the outside edge of the board as well.
Yeah, and the really cool thing about this is you can do any of these things in any order. So you could visit before you move. You could move before you visit. And then the third main action is to activate. Oftentimes you're going to do this at the very beginning because this is going to get you some attributes out on the board. But again, you can do this in any order. When you activate, you're going to be able to activate either your character, and this is the character you start with. When you do that, you're going to get one of any of the main primary attributes. Or you can activate your companion. You know, you're going to be collecting potentially different companions throughout the game. You can select any one of these companions and activate them. They're usually going to give you a little bit more of one of the primary attributes, and they're also going to have an activation ability when you've activated them that turn. So they give you a little bit more of a power ongoing. The rub is that when you do this, you have to place one of your influence cubes on them, kind of clogging up your influence currency on that companion because you're getting a little bit more from them.
Once you take in one of those three, or all of those possibly three basic actions, you're allowed a number of different bonus actions. These bonus actions are going to change depending upon the modules that you play within the game. Now, we have a base game set up, including the monuments, which is outside of the base game, but there's other different bonus actions you can take depending upon which stack of cards you introduce, which tiles you introduce, and so forth. But the basic things that you can do is try to control regions that you had visited on that particular turn. To do that, you're giving up some of your conviction. Now, we had said you're moving your potential over to your influence and your influence over to your conviction. You can give up some of that conviction to an area that you visited in order to try to control that region. Each of these regions that you control are going to give you victory points, and they're going to give you victory points at the end of the game, plus give you some kind of inherent ability right then when you use it.
Yeah, controlling is a big part of this game because not only are you going to get points right then and at the end, but anytime someone else at the table uses that location, you're also going to get 2 victory points. So this is one of the main ways to build one of those ongoing engines of getting points, particularly if you take control of a location that's very important to everybody at the table.
Also, some of the things you can do on your turn is you can vindicate yourself. The moment that you have 25 victory points in the game, you can try to vindicate yourself if all of your potential influence has moved over to your influence sphere. And when you do that, you're going to flip over your tile, meaning that when you activate your character on future turns, you're gaining more potential attributes from where you go.
Yeah, and all of these things that should be said are going to be adding points to your score. When you vindicate, you flip that tile over, not only is it more powerful, but you're going to get points. When you add a companion, you're going to get points. If you lose a companion, and there are ways to lose companions, you're going to lose those points. So the points are going to be going all through the game, and there's a whole bunch of end-of-game scoring as well.
There's a lot of things you're going to be doing on the board itself, such as visiting ends, manipulating your influence. When you visit ends, you're going to be able to collect companions by giving up some of the influence that you have in those 3 main areas. You also have the ability at any given time to mix your influence together. You're going to notice that you have these 6 influence cubes. There's 3 that are basic, and then there's 3 that are rare. And you can actually mix these together by taking 2 basics and creating 1 of the more rare types. And to do that, you're going to be trying to gather some of those more difficult to gather cards, such as relics, traits, and then even trying to destroy some of the monsters on the board by going to very specific locations.
Yeah, it's great because all of these really work at the end of the day in a very similar fashion. Any of these cards are going to just cost 2 of whatever particular attribute it's associated with to acquire that card. It's just trickier to get those relic traits and the relic cards and the trait cards, as well as the monsters. The monsters are going to take courage, which is a mixture of strength and inspiration. And after you take the monster, you have to roll these dice. These dice aren't going to be used to determine whether you defeat the monster. You automatically will defeat the monster if you fulfill the courage requirements. But you're going to roll these. You're going to get sort of loot, if you will, in the form of an attribute instantly. And then there's this die. This die is either going to be one of a few things. 1, nothing will happen, you're safe. 2, this symbol comes up, and this is going to mean that you have to put more of your influence on your champion, again, clogging up that influence economy. And then 3, which is the worst, is this skull, which means you're going to lose your champion. In this case, you're going to take the companion that was labeled your champion and discard them and lose the points that were on that companion.
All right, so we decided we weren't going to talk about how to play the game, but we actually did talk about a lot about how to play the game. The more we talk, the more we could probably explain more elements of the game, but I think we should probably go into the review because we'll describe some of the other elements of the game that we either like or dislike. All right, so let's talk about the actual review itself. There's a lot of things to like in this game. Number one, the production values on this game are insane. The moment that you open this box, all of the components are completely organized, not only by individual components for each of the players, but all the tiles, all the cards are organized in their own little game tray. And the game itself just looks beautiful. So this is a really high-end production.
Yeah, the game trays are fantastic. And when they ran the Kickstarter for this last year, they had all of these extra little bits. As you may know, I'm not a fan of standees, but I've got to tell you,
It's a metal.
It's a metal standee. You know,
Right.
there's a little base and it's got a little metal rectangular token that goes in it. It's actually a joy to use. There's a lot of metal going on, and a lot of these components are really cool. In fact, the cards themselves, you know, and some people may like this, some people may not. If you can see this, we have them sleeved, but there's little notches cut in. So these are die-cut cards. They're not perfectly square. They've really gone out of their way to make this game very, very unique.
All right, my second positive, and this is probably my favorite thing about the entire game, is the game end triggers that happen. As we said at the very start, most of these games you play an X number of rounds, or you play until one player is defeated or it's collected an X number of victory points. In this game, just due to the variability of those dozen or more different game end triggers, you never know how the game is going to end at any given time. So each time that you play the game, it could be a very short game that's maybe an hour, it could be a longer game that's maybe 2 hours. It all depends upon those and how the players are playing the game, because it does have this very sandbox feel to it on how you collect your victory points. There's a lot of variability in the game on what you want to do, how you want to do it, the timing of the things that you do, and the different cards that you're collecting, because all these cards are going to intermingle in different types of ways. So both of those things can combine to create a really unique experience every time that you play the game.
Yeah, I would absolutely have to agree. If you've ever taught games and you get to that one part you think is really cool and everyone at the table goes, oh, that's cool, that's this part. Those game end triggers, I would almost guarantee you, if you teach this game, everyone at the table at that moment will go, oh, that's interesting. Like, I've never seen anything like that in a game. And it makes it really interesting because it's very variable from the start. And then there's always that risk that a card flips and, oh, I better have everything together so that I can have the points that I want at the end of the game.
Before I get into my negatives, I don't want to overlook my comment about variability. It's not only in how the game ends, but it's also in the way that you play the game. I played the game twice. You played it way more times than I have. And each time that I played the game, I scored victory points in very, very different ways. You can go after monsters hardcore because monsters have the ability to give you a lot of points right then when you destroy them, and points at the end of the game. You can go after territories and try to control more territories, because when you control territories, people have to use those territories, and they're giving you victory points each time they use those. You can go after the different attributes and score points on the monuments, which we didn't even really mention. There's ways to score a lot of points by spreading out your attributes and trying to collect victory points that way. There's just a lot of different ways in this game to score victory points. So there's a ton of variability each time that you play.
Yeah, and to dovetail into that and include these expansions, the one final big pro that I have is this game has a ton to offer. Like, you could play this in the base mode and it is a very good game. Once you add for instance, the Guilds and Monuments expansion, that blows the game wide open. Not only do you have these monuments with these somewhat superfluous but really cool miniatures that get included, but you have this triangular token here. This is your guild favor. When you add this expansion, every turn you're going to get a fourth basic action, and it is to use this simple little triangular metal token for one of 8 different things.
Yeah.
So there's 8 different things that you can do. Now, these are not 8 new things. These are basically ways of sort of juicing or massaging the different things that you can do standardly, but you can basically make them more efficient, do them so that they reverse the economy so you're not losing influence, you're gaining influence, all sorts of different things with this, and it makes it you can't play without this once you've played it.
And not only that, but there's also modules that are going to add new tiles to the game, that are going to introduce new sets of cards like pets or mines.
Yeah.
They're going to add a variety of different things that you can do from one game to the next. There's just a lot of variability in this game.
Absolutely.
All right, you have any other positives before we get into negatives?
I could go on and on for all the details, but yeah, let's go on with some of our critique.
All right, so my critique, one of them is probably going to be the way that the game initially starts. Everyone drafts these cards, and these cards are going to tell you where you're going to start on the outside of the board, which can really kind of hamper you if you're all stuck together in one particular area, and then players move into an area or block you by placing tokens that give them victory points. They can lock up some really early locations that give you attributes, meaning that on your turn, at least your first couple turns, you're going to have to be pushing out even further than them, and you could have a delayed start in the game by not getting attributes quickly, by not locking up locations quickly. So that can be a detriment. There's probably a way to do some house rules and say, hey,
Sure.
we're each going to start in different locations, and then we have the opportunity to advance and explore at different times and in different areas. But if you're locked into a location at the start, it can kind of give you a negative idea about the game right from the beginning.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and it should be noted too, the guys at Orange Nebula embrace the fact that the community is house ruling things and coming up with new and unique ways of making variants to the game. But like Jeremy said, when you start, what I would add to that is you can't hold on to an engine. If you think you're going to use a particular engine to score your points and then someone gets a tile flip and they secure that location that might be for fighting monsters and you wanted to do that, what you've got to do is let go and re-strategize what am I going to do to score my points, because it's probably not going to be monsters if someone controls that region.
The other negative I have about the game is this game, the moment you sit down to play it and you see all these cards, it initially tells you that this is a game about discovery and exploration and trying to build these small little engines to score points, and it does have that. However, the games that I have played, both times have steered us to complete our monuments, which everyone did, and then to try to grab the mastery tiles, because each of those give you such a large influx of points that you quickly realize that the other cards and engines that you build probably aren't going to be as important, especially if the game is truncated and it ends after just a few rounds of play because someone has triggered something. So what I'm trying to say is I wish the game didn't have these mastery tiles, because as a gamer, I want to explore all these different things. I want to explore the card play. I want to explore how certain companions work with my, with my wretched, how it works with the different tiles in the game. And I don't want it to be at the end of the game, each of us divide up the mastery tiles and each of us have this. Because at the end of the game, it doesn't really do anything to enhance it when you really want to focus on what you're doing in the game itself on the board.
Yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't go so far as to say I don't want the mastery tiles, but I would say this about these things. The mastery tiles in particular are an element that you can't ignore. You can't not go after at least a couple mastery tiles. If you don't go after any of those and someone else dominates them, they're going to get an insane amount of points at the end of the game. What I would say is there are a few main things that you all have to focus on, and then it's all about where you can grab your other points to make the difference at the end of the game. I have played games, like Jeremy said, I've played this a few more times. I've played games where we had these monuments out and not one person finished one. What I would say to just add one more thing to what Jeremy said is there's so much out here, and you do want to explore everything, like, oh, I want to get a red companion and a blue one and a yellow and a trait. I don't know that that's possible.
Sure.
Like, you have to really focus on some things and say, I'm not going to get a lot of companions because I'm going to go with traits or relics. You can't spend a lot of time in this. The game just won't last long enough to do all of these things that it has to offer. So in a way, it truly is a sandbox that offers you so much to do that it can be a little bit overwhelming.
It can be overwhelming. However, I think that the journey is worth it. There's a lot of great things to love about this game. A lot of things to explore, not only with the base game, but all the different modules, including, we know that there is now a Kickstarter online with a bunch of different material that allows you to bring your monuments onto the board to score them in different ways now, which is something that I think both of us wanted right from the beginning. Plus, there's leader tiles. I mean, again, this game is all about variability and module and how the game is going to set up with different modules. So that is Vindication.
Yes.
If you guys have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. This is an MVM approved title, so we both love it. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do. And we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.